Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to A Marriage Like That podcast, episode 3. Mary, we made it to 3 episodes. By the way, I'm your host, Mike Kimball, the Scene Snob. And I have the Mrs. Scene Snob with me.
Hello.
Mary Kimball.
Hello.
So,
How are you doing?
I'm great, baby. We're back again.
We are back again.
3 episodes.
Third time's the charm.
Yeah, right? Well, I know, I think that second episode was pretty good.
The second one was really good.
We've gotten some compliments on the first, so let's top it.
Yeah.
Top it now. So how are you doing today? How's your week going?
It's good. Busy as usual, but it's good. I can't complain.
How's that social media managing?
It's good. Busy, but
Is there anything else you want to tell me? Like, what are you wearing? Oh, sorry. Getting off.
It's not that kind of podcast, babe.
Getting off course here. It can be. It's a marriage like that, am I right? Hardy har. Well, we had a pretty good day today.
Yeah, we did.
We got to hang out with Jack and Tommy a bit. And, those are our boys.
Yeah.
So, and we just watched, right before we came down, we just watched the brand new The Invisible Man trailer.
We did. It was really intense.
I'm excited for it because the director, Lee Wanell, is a great writer in horror. And
what else
great
has
director.
he done?
He was in, and he wrote Saw.
Oh, okay.
The first one.
Okay.
The good one.
Mm-hmm.
With an actual good
Tommy
story.
asked me if he could watch Saw the other day. And I said, no. And he goes, well, what is it about? And I said, essentially, it's 2 people locked in a basement, and you either have to shoot the other person or cut off your own arm. And it's a movie about that decision.
Not even your arm, you have to cut off your foot.
Or your foot. Well,
Oof.
right.
Oof.
But I think I got him off of it, so.
Yeah, I think,
It'll be
yeah.
okay.
I mean, those have never been my kind of movies, but that one is a good movie. It was a surprising and well-written movie, but he's also written and directed. He didn't direct the first Insidious. James Wan, who he frequently collaborates with, directed the first one. It might be the second one. I have to double check, but Lee Wanell did take over, and they have progressively stayed as good or gotten better. So he is a great writer, and he also wrote and directed. Why am I drawing a blank? It's the one a guy gets technology downloaded into him and then takes revenge.
RoboCop?
No, it's the best movie of all time. I'd never forget that. Upgrade.
Oh,
It
see,
came
I've
out.
never heard of that. I don't.
It was like it was a dark buddy cop movie because the computer
Who
in
was
his
in
head.
that?
It's a guy who looks like Tom Hardy. I can never remember his name, but he's a good actor. He's been in a lot of stuff, but he looks just like Tom Hardy. And he plays the guy. It takes place in the future.
Okay.
He gets left for dead, and his wife got killed. But he
Those
gets.
get me now. I mean, it's funny how movies, when you watch, and we touched on this a little bit in the last episode, but there are movies that I watch now that affect me differently than had I watched them earlier in my life, before marriage, before kids. So it's just funny to think about that.
Well, you remember when you were pregnant with Jack, and you wanted to watch having a baby, and it's that scene towards the end.
Maxwell.
When he
song
doesn't,
gets me every time.
I was like, nope, can't watch this. That and I think I started watching Jersey Girl.
Ooh.
In that beginning.
Oh, we had to turn it off.
Yeah.
You were like, nope, hard no.
Couldn't handle it. And I never had a problem. Never thought about it.
Right.
And then once you were pregnant, it was like, nope,
Yeah.
can't go back. Well, maybe I could probably go back now, but at that time, it was like, no, hard pass on all of them. And you're right, but certain things, especially with kids or wives, it does get to me. That movie, of course, did, because you can relate to it, but it was good. It was a very good movie. It wasn't as dark because it was almost buddy copish, like the computer in his head versus him, having taken control of the body. And it was very much technology versus man.
Okay.
And but Lee Wanell wrote and directed that, and now I'm seeing a very similar theme in this Invisible Man movie, which I'm loving,
It looks so good.
I love the original Invisible Man. Now, I don't know how much you know about it.
Well, see, I've never seen it, and I don't know very much about it. The only thing that comes to mind is my oldest sister just saying how terrified it made her.
Well,
or was that or the Elephant Man? Now I can't remember.
The Elephant Man probably is what terrified her, because just how he looked, which is sad because that was a true story. But
no, but it wasn't. No, I think it was the Invisible Man.
It might be.
I digress.
Might even be Hollow Man with Kevin Bacon.
Maybe. I don't know. There's lots of men going on. It's raining men.
Oh God.
On the Sing Style podcast.
Wow, we came back 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, and we came back to Kevin Bacon.
We did.
From She's Having a Baby to Hollow Man. Wow.
Right. That's because Kevin Bacon is the man.
And he's in everything.
Sorry.
I love it. But yeah, the original Invisible Man starred Claude Rains. Remember Claude Rains? He was the French chief in Casablanca who's round up the usual suspects. Rick, this looks like the beginning of your. Oh no, Rick says it to him.
Right.
Well, Claude Rains has been in everything back then, and he played the Invisible Man in the movie. And basically, he was a scientist who discovered a potion, and because he could turn invisible, he started out like light pranks, and he saw the power of being invisible. And
was he invisible all the time, or he could go back and forth?
He was invisible all the time. In the beginning, he wasn't invisible, and he took the potion, and like he was renting a room in an inn or something, and in a small village. And it progresses, like then he's invisible, but he like wraps his face.
I remember that. Right.
So, and then he turns to like killing, things like that. So like it becomes darker and darker as it goes on, and he's getting away with it. And then, but this one looks like it kind of takes themes from Upgrade, which is technology versus woman in this case, with Elizabeth Moss playing it. Like
Whoa man.
She looks like it's an abusive relationship with a really rich guy, probably a tech guy.
Right.
I'm speculating there, but she escapes him, and it seems like she goes with her sister and her husband, and then she's sitting in the lawyer's office, and the lawyer's like, he killed himself, and he's leaving you $5 million, provided you are not found to be insane, like, you know, you have to get tested and stuff and make sure.
But I'm curious to find out, what is the timeline? Because, you know, with the will, you would think that they would want to close it out, you know, sooner than later. I mean, I understand I'm still learning about suspension of disbelief and that whole concept, but I will be curious to find out the timeline of that, because I feel like it would take a long time to really drive someone insane.
I would agree with you to a point.
I mean, we're already going on 4 years, babe, and I still am not there yet, so.
You get there. We can all try and strive for it, but
life goals.
I foresee it making sense, because Lee Wanell, as a writer, I have to give him praise. Like he ties up loose ends in his movies. So, and I can also see, even if it's suspension of disbelief, say you have a week. Say like the lawyers, and this is all a setup. We kind of find out this is all set up. So say she has a week before she has to get tested or whatever, and he just died and she has to live out that week. Well, an invisible man will probably drive you crazy or make you look crazy to people if he's torturing you.
That's true.
So, because nobody's going to believe that.
Right.
So, it looks like there's a technology element to it that kind of show. So, I'm anxious to see where it goes. But, it just like there's a scene in it in the trailer where she's cooking, and she puts the knife down on the thing, and like the frying pan is going, and she walks out of frame, and it never moves.
Right.
The shot never moves, which I think is beautiful. And that's Lee Wanell. He makes these shots that are amazing.
Beautiful shot.
And she walks out, and the knife comes off of the counter by itself, and then you just see the
I missed the
fire
knife.
pop up a little bit.
I just saw the fire.
Yeah, you see the fire pop up a little bit,
amazing.
and then the fire starts in the frying pan, the grease fire, and you're like, it's so simple, but it's terrifying.
Right.
And I like.
But even when she's in the shower, she's in the shower and it's the glass shower stall and it's all steamed up, and then all you see is the hand, but it slowly forms. It's not, you know, a typical.
It's creepy.
It's so creepy.
Like when she's outside and you can see her breath in the cold.
Ooh,
and then you see his breath, but you don't see anything else. You just see the breath.
Oh,
and
so creepy.
But that's what I like about. I like the theme he took, because the original was just a guy who started out doing pranks and he found this power, and he just kind of turned it on this village and was trying to get away with things. Whereas this one, it's very much looks like it starts with domestic abuse and a woman trying to escape that and thinking she's finally free,
right?
Only to let's amp it up another times 100, and she has to deal with an invisible version of her abusive either husband or boyfriend, whatever
Psychotic,
it is.
right?
And I think that theme is perfect in the horror genre alone, but also
but
to
it's
use
new. You know, it's a remake, but with a new take on it.
Yeah.
I am so tired. Hello, James Dean. Let's touch on that for a minute. They are going to make a movie where they have an actor and they will CGI James Dean's face to this actor to make a movie, because, correct me if I'm wrong, but either the director or producer or someone said they couldn't imagine anybody else except for James Dean in this role.
Which, you know, it's interesting you bring this up, because I kind of read the article. I didn't get a chance to finish it. I was going to finish it before my next Scene Styles podcast, because being movie related, but yeah, I do want to talk to you about it, because you did read the article and you know more. But what I gathered was this is a Vietnam era movie. It's about a movie about fighting in Vietnam, and he's doing this with James Dean,
right?
Who died 10 years before Vietnam started,
right?
So it's so bizarre to me.
So bizarre.
That you're taking, like, I don't know where the line ends with this, because like they did Peter Cushing for Rogue One, Star Wars Rogue One, where he came back as Grand Moff Tarkin, and he wasn't in it much,
right?
You know, but it was cool, and it was cool to see him, and it made sense that he was there because he was in the original, and this takes place around that timeline. He was in A New Hope, I should say, and this takes place like right before A New Hope, so he would be the one in charge back then. So like, kind of bringing him back, I get it. Like that makes sense.
Right.
And I don't think
timeline matched up.
Yeah, and I don't think by doing that you're disgracing anybody's memory who passed away or anything like that. Because even with like Princess Leia, well, she was still alive at the time, but they did the same for her. They de-aged her, and it was the young Princess Leia because she was in it. And I just don't think in a situation like that it's such a big deal. Right. You know, especially.
But they're bringing the character back. That's who played the original character.
Yes. So. And you're keeping within continuity of the story and stuff. My problem with the James Dean thing is, like, and they're even saying it was like he's coming back for his fourth movie. Right. And it's like, it's not his fourth movie. He's been dead since 1955. Right. What do you do?
This is not him. What are you talking about?
In a movie about a war he never saw.
Right.
You know?
So bizarre.
I feel like that tarnishes the memory of somebody.
Agreed.
And I also think it opens up the door.
It does.
To something like right now, there's a big fight over these deep fakes and things like that, and what they're doing on the deep fakes are. It started out with porn, where you would like superimpose or CGI celebrities' faces on porn stars' bodies.
To make it seem like it was them.
Like I think one of them was Gal Gadot.
I remember. Okay.
Or Gal Gadot,
I didn't know that's what it was called.
So, in a situation like that, I'm like, that's messed up within itself.
Right.
But it was like a new technology. It was something different. It was maybe that's not how it should have been introduced, but everything comes from porn. Right. It's just what it is.
That's true. Right.
So, you know, I'm not surprised is what I'm saying with that. But with this,
I'm still disappointed with every pizza delivery, I have to say.
Big sausage pizza.
Well, just ignore that part. Yeah. It's fine.
Oh boy. So that's a real. I make that up. That's a real thing. That's not on me. So we are entering a time where, and now like there's a lot of talk about political interviews and things like that are being defaked to show these politicians and such saying things they never said,
Right.
to try and throw them off of their elections and things. I think Elizabeth Warren had one, or I had seen that Elizabeth Warren had one. I didn't read it. I don't know if it's true.
Right.
You never know. You have to do your research for everything, and I just don't have that much time.
Right.
But I take everything with a grain of salt anyway. So that's happening, and that's becoming a big problem. I think we need to slow it down and regulate it in some way.
Right.
And I think right now, this is something that should be regulated by Hollywood.
Right.
Like, I don't know whether it's the Union of the Screen Actors Guild or what. Like, who gets paid for James Dean being in it?
Right.
Does the
Right.
actor who's playing him, that they're putting somebody else's
Who's
face
putting the
on top
work
of him?
into it? Right.
I get it. Are they paying the estate of James
Right.
Dean? Is he getting paid at all, or do you have to pay somebody who's dead?
Right.
Do you have to get the rights to
Right.
do this?
How are
If
they going to do the voice? Does it have to be words he's already spoken that were recorded?
No, they'll get somebody who has a close enough voice.
Will they get paid?
Everybody will get paid.
But
Depending
to
on-
the extent that James Dean would have gotten paid. Is
What if
I'm
this is a
saying.
huge hit?
Right.
And then now James Dean's a star again.
Right.
And now he's in a series of movies. What actors are out of business now,
Right.
are not getting roles because now we can put fake people up? They made a movie about this a long time ago. It did not do well. It came out like, I want to say 2001, 2002. It was called Simone.
Oh, I think I remember that.
With Al Pacino.
Yeah.
And the only reason I
didn't
saw
see it, but I remember it really well.
Nobody seems to have seen this movie. The only reason I saw it is because I was working at a movie theater at the time, and it was playing, and I was a projectionist.
Oh,
so
right.
like once the movies that were playing at that time, they played, and either I got off work or whatever it was, I went and I sat and I watched it, and I was like, and like in the end, like he gets lambasted, like because he's an agent who's down on his luck in the
Okay.
movie. He's either an
Does he
agent or he's
fall
a
in love with
manager or
her?
something. No, she's not real.
No, I know that she's not real, but
He stumbles upon this technology, which is basically the technology they have now
right.
that can create, and he creates this woman from this technology. He has people helping him, of course, and puts her in movies and comes up with excuses why she can't be on set, and they have to act like this, or they have to act through the screen together, or whatever. And it's this whole thing, and like she's getting nominated for awards, and
Oh
she's
my
beloved.
gosh.
She becomes the next big movie star, and like his lie is getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's becoming a huge issue for him that he ultimately has to come clean and be like,
Right.
she's not real. I made her up,
Right.
and like it screws up his career and everything. Like he realizes he's done after that.
Yeah.
And we're doing that now.
Yep.
We're doing that now, and I just do. What is the ethical? Is there an ethical dilemma here?
Right.
But who are we to say?
Right.
You know, and even Hollywood. But I think Hollywood. You know, I don't think it should be government regulated, but and maybe kind of because of like what I was saying about the politicians' interviews and stuff like that. I don't know. I don't have the answer. I don't want to say it should be regulated,
No.
but I think at least Hollywood needs to step in and be like, there has to be some sort of regulations. You have to get the okay from somebody. Like if there's no family left for James
Right.
Dean, then you don't get to do it.
But even still, how with as many actors or actresses or what have you that are out there, how is it possible that you can't find someone? You know, one of the biggest memories of James Dean was the fact that he had only done less than a handful of movies.
Great.
Right. So to bring him back in this way and basically spit in the face of all, especially the new upcoming actors who are not given a chance to do this, you're essentially ruining the future of your pool of actors and who is going to want to be in this industry when they can just be replaced by CGI of a different actor who either passed or didn't pass.
Yeah.
And who's to say that, you know, an older actor can't say, you know, I'm at the end of my life, you know, silver years or whatever, and now I want to sell you the rights of my image to use to make more movies, and then that keeps you in, in the play, being old and out of work.
I'm glad you said that, because that kind of takes me to my next point on this. Because while you brought this up, there are some other things going on. If you go and you look at The Irishman, which is Martin Scorsese's next movie, the whole movie takes place over
See, I don't know much about that, and I have not watched the trailer. So
oh wow, it's so good. We gotta
I've
watch it.
heard really good things, yeah.
But it stars Robert De Niro, Al Pacino, and Joe Pesci.
Wow.
And like Ray Romano's in it. There's a bunch of people. It's Scorsese.
Yeah.
So, and it's about I can't remember his name at the moment, but he was a mob hitman, who was for years and like notorious and for years up there, and he worked with the union. He worked for Jimmy Hoffa, and he would when the mob and the unions were working together. He worked for Hoffa too, and Al Pacino plays Hoffa, Jimmy Hoffa.
Okay.
And Robert De Niro plays the hitman, the Irishman, as they call him, and Buffalino, who is the family that hires him.
Okay.
I think Ray Romano plays like the son, and Joe Pesci plays the dad or brother. They're brothers or something like that. In the movie, they're real
the
family.
height must come from the mother's side, but
yeah, well, that's where it comes from in mine. But so they, so talking about that, like the whole movie takes place in the lifespan of the Irishman, the hitman. So they de-age everybody in it. They have Al Pacino looking like he did when he was in Mean Streets,
oh my god,
which was like his first movie.
Right.
Not his first, but it was one of his bigger ones. For his first bigger ones. Oh, Harvey Keitel's in it too.
I love Harvey Keitel.
So like he gets everybody for this, and they bring it back to when they were all younger. So when you see the trailer, you'll see what I mean. They de-age everybody with this technology.
Oh, okay.
And it looks amazing. They spent like $150 million just for this de-aging process on the actors.
Oh my gosh, that seems a little.
But it's Scorsese, and it's going to be great.
True.
So who's not into it? You know what I mean? So my point is with that, like you said, like an actor could sell his rights, because they were talking about it with Pacino, and De Niro, and Scorsese on a bunch of TV shows, like Today Show, things like that. And they were saying, they were like, we keep working for years,
right?
Yeah. And I do, like, I have like almost a moral dilemma with that. Like, yeah, that's great, and yeah, that's probably helpful for them to be
How much money do they have, though? Let the young. Sorry, go ahead.
I don't think I don't even worry about the money side of it, because you're not Robert De Niro officially retiring.
That was the wrong wording.
No, I know what you mean though, but Robert De Niro officially retiring from acting, say that ever happens, it's not going to be and nothing against actors, struggling actors and such. It's not going to be somebody who's a barista in Starbucks who takes over for Robert De Niro. It's going to be a big actor who's behind him and younger now that does it. And then they'll take over. There's always cyclical. So maybe that barista will take over for that person.
Correct.
And it's not a jump. So like good young actors today, that's who are stars within their own rights, are who are going to miss out on roles by saying Robert De Niro can be de-aged to this technology, and we're willing to do it and put the money and the budget towards that. So we're not going to get, I don't know, let's say, for lack of a better, not term, but a better actor, let's say James Franco.
Okay.
James Franco doesn't get this role
sure,
because we're going to give it to De Niro, because it's De Niro, and we can just de-age him and he's young again. And he looks like he did in Taxi Driver and Raging Bull and such. That's the problem I have. It's like, there are actors out there who can do the role, and it's like, if you take aging away from people, it's like if you took all, aging away from all the senior citizens, and they were still young enough to do things, we'd have a hell of a population problem just in the job force.
You know what my question is?
What?
My question, and I'm curious to know your input on this. So you mentioned a lot of big names in that scenario, in this movie, where they de-age them.
Yeah.
All of them are men. My question is,
I don't know that
many...
that's true.
Okay, fair. That's fair.
It's right now. It's happening.
But for this movie specifically, of the big names in the movie that you're aware of, for the
I don't know who
most
plays
part,
the wives and stuff, so I don't.
All right. I guess my question is though, is that, you know, because there is a huge conversation about men aging and getting better with age and still being able to play the heartthrob or, you know, the player or what have you, but at a certain age, women are no longer cast for those types of roles. Then they're cast as the mother or the grandmother or the old maid, for lack of a better term. And it's always the younger Hollywood actresses that get the starlet roles. So my question is, and it may not be answerable today, you know, let's see how this plays out with this being kind of the first movie truly where, you know, the whole cast is euthanized. Ha ha ha. You see what I did there?
I see.
But I am curious to see how that happens, if it will be equal for men and women.
No, well, it's not equal now, and the reason I say that is because think about all of the movies. Let's take action movies just for.
I do not want to talk about Captain Marvel.
No. Let's take action movies for instance, which tend to get a lot of sequels.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
You know, you can't really take horror because everybody dies in horror.
Right.
Even the final girl, it's like,
Right.
oh, my friends are dead. Why am I going back to the
Right.
campsite? You know, but if you take like an action movie, think about an action movie, and there are some. Don't get me wrong, but I want you to think about it. Think about an action movie that had sequels, where the female lead came back for the next one. And now I know you have like a lot of and this isn't a trick question. I really want to see what you think because a lot of my instances, which break the mold, and they're the contradiction to the rule. You know, you haven't seen, so that's why I'm asking you about. If you think about it, like.
I don't know.
Well, like for only one I can really think of in the '90s.
Die Hard, but she didn't really come back. She was
never
in
came
the
back.
background.
She was in the sequel,
Right.
but that was a carbon copy.
Right.
You needed her there.
Well, then she was on the phone, but then she was only on the phone for
The third one, she was on the phone,
third one.
but wasn't even her.
Correct. No, that's
And
what I mean.
And Die Hard's
so,
good because they do bring the daughter back from the fourth
Right.
to the fifth one, but she's only in it for like 30 seconds.
Right.
What I mean is, like, most times when these action movies cast these young women as these sexy women, they bring in, and then it's another sexy woman
Yeah.
in the sequel. It's like
But it's the same man.
yes, but
Right.
I call it the James Bond effect, which
Yeah.
is ironic because it's not always the same man, but
Right.
you get the point.
Right.
Like, I every time I notice it, I call it the James Bond.
Sure.
Effect. Like
Which
the
is
woman's always
appropriate, I
going
think.
to change,
Mm-hmm.
and although it makes sense for that series because everybody changes in that series,
Right.
Except for Moneypenny
Mm-hmm.
and M.
Mm-hmm.
So going through, and again, I want any geeks that are listening to this. I do realize actors change. Like Dame Judi Dench played M in the movies. Like I know they change. What I mean is those characters keep coming back.
Right.
Really, the only movies that keep the sexy women around that they can, the Fast and the Furious series.
Mm-hmm.
Michelle
Yeah.
Rodriguez has been there from the beginning. What's her name?
I don't know.
Why am I drawing a blank on this? The one who plays his sister in it, and it was Paul Walker's wife in it, is in it from the
Best
beginning.
eyebrows in Hollywood.
Gal Gadot came in the fourth one.
Mm-hmm.
Then she was in the fifth one. Then she was. Spoiler alert! If you haven't seen a movie that's almost 7 years old, she died in it.
Oh.
Yeah, well, you haven't seen it, but you'll get
That
there.
makes me sad.
You know, but then they
Well,
replaced her with somebody else, and she was in the sequel.
Right.
You know, so.
It's fair. There are like 12 of them.
But they keep the same people
Right.
around.
That's true.
And they'll introduce new people,
Right.
but without sacrificing the
The
old ones,
core group.
especially the women.
Yeah. No, that's very true.
If it's a family, it's family. They keep it.
All right, I can get.
And
I
Marvel
respect that.
movies.
Right.
Marvel movies are like Scarlett Johansson has been around for a while.
But she wasn't But she wasn't a. She was one of the main superheroes.
Yeah, but think about anybody from the peripheral, because she still
What about what's her name? Thor's girlfriend.
She left
Natalie
on her
Portman.
own, but she was in 2 of them.
She was.
And she's coming back.
All right.
So she wasn't in the 3rd one, and they explained that as a breakup because she didn't want to come back for the 3rd one.
Right.
So, and she wouldn't have worked in the 3rd one anyway.
Yeah.
So.
Is that one Ragnarok?
Yeah.
I love that movie.
And they introduced Tessa Thompson, which did work.
Yeah. She was badass in that movie.
She came back for the next one. She came back for Endgame. You know,
but that's a different kind of character, though. That's a badass action, still sexy, and that part of it. But that's a different kind of character, in my opinion.
Yeah.
That's not a James Bond where the women are the eye candy. You know. Okay, Secret Time. I have only seen the one James Bond movie with Halle Berry.
Wow, really?
Can't even remember the name of it. Yes.
I think that was Tomorrow Never Dies.
Tomorrow Never Dies.
I think. I'm
pretty
like,
sure.
Yeah.
However, from my limited experience, all of the women in that type of movie were the arm, were not part of the action in a main scene kind of way.
No, that I will debunk. It's not. That's not. I mean, in some cases, usually they were the femme fatale, which he would sleep with, and then they end up dead because he turned them. And but like the one I can't remember the actress' name, the one who played Pussy Galore, who had that famous. She came out of the water with the orange bathing
Halle
suit.
Berry.
No, they reenacted that one. You know, she was a part of the action. She was like a secret agent and such.
But she was a bad guy.
No.
Oh,
no,
she wasn't a bad guy?
Oh. Not all of them were femme. There was always like an equal amount. Like the one with
Halle Berry?
No, the one with
January
Denise Richards.
Jones?
You were just January. No, it wasn't January Jones. She's an actress.
Denise Richards?
Yeah, she was like the Dr. January or whatever. She was like a nuclear physicist. It was very weird. That wasn't
Denise
the Halle
Richards
Berry
played?
one. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a suspension of disbelief.
And she was she was the she was the partner to him almost. Whereas the other woman she played the wife, she played the princess or queen in Braveheart.
Oh, okay.
She was the bad guy who you thought was on his side.
Right.
Like it was how they played it out was like, again, I'm going back and I haven't rewatched. I need to rewatch the Pierce Brosnan ones, but you know, ever since Daniel Craig, I've had a hard time going back.
Do you didn't like Daniel Craig?
I love Daniel Craig.
Going back.
It's hard to go back and rewatch this action because it's like Daniel Craig brought it to a whole new level. And I'm so excited for the next one. And I was talking about this the other day on another podcast. Like, give it to Idris Elba. The man is a genius. Oh my God.
I'd give it to him.
Oh, thanks, babe. That's awesome. So, Marriage Like That podcast became something quite different.
You brought it up.
Yeah, because I'd give it to him.
You would. Come on.
He's amazing.
Oh my gosh.
He's great in Hobbs and Shaw.
Yes, he was.
He was the only villain you could put up. Like, I don't mean to get off topic, but he was the only villain you could put up who's charismatic enough to match The Rock and Jason Statham.
I 100% agree.
And believe he'll give him a fight.
Yes. Agreed. That movie was phenomenal.
Yeah. And not just that, I mean, he's just a great actor. If you watch Luther, you're like, this dude has so many levels. But going back to what we were originally saying, we digress. Like, they don't really... Women are interchangeable weirdly. Not as much anymore. It's starting to get out of that.
Fair.
You see more and more women getting their accolades and coming back. Scarlett Johansson's one who starts starring in movies now, and I mean, Meryl Streep's always been the exception to the rule.
True.
You know, Amy Adams is another one.
Right.
Like Jennifer Lawrence has been in recent years up there.
What about Glenn Close? I mean, there are some.
Yeah, but Glenn Close. You're going to get an amazing performance out of Glenn Close, but I don't think she picks the roles. I think she's kind of like when we were talking about Matthew Modine. Matthew Modine's like, I pick my roles. Like, I think she's always kind of been like that because She hasn't been in a ton.
That's true.
But she does, when she shows up, like,
That's
you
true.
can tell, like, she's like, yeah, I'll do this role.
Right.
Like, this is a role that means something to me, or I'll appreciate
I
it.
miss Mr. Modine. I have to bring that up.
Yeah.
Do you think he misses us?
No, not at all. And I don't blame him.
Yeah, sure.
But, so, like, women aren't as interchangeable anymore, so you might see it more and more
Yeah,
as they get older, but you're at a point, like, I'm sure you'll see Meryl Streep de-aged.
Right.
But it's the studios have to now decide, do we want to spend this money on de-aging, and who's the actor that deserves the money to be spent on
Right.
them.
Because then they have to pay for the de-aging plus the amount for these big actors.
But think about it. If you have Robert De Niro in top billing over, let's say, give me a big star who's young, who's younger today. So who does top billing now? So, like, let's say The Rock.
Okay.
So The Rock is
Jason Momoa.
Jason Momoa.
Okay.
Okay, so let's take Jason
Go
Momoa
forward.
because he's younger, and I wanna go with
Right.
that.
That's what I was trying to.
So
I
right
keep thinking
now,
of James DeFranco, and I'm like, you cannot put him
James Franco
up
is,
against that caliber of. I mean, he's good, you know.
but he kind of
plays-
does his own thing.
He
anyway.
does, and he's kind of a typecast. So.
Yeah. Well, but when it comes to, like, if you have Robert De Niro and he's de-aged and now can be in an action movie, or be in a comedy like Midnight Run where he's playing a young bounty
Right.
hunter or something like that, again, you can do that with him now. The studio might be like, well, it's more bankable, like,
Right.
especially if the Irishman's going to do as well as they say it's going to.
Right.
It's more bankable to spend the money on Robert De Niro to do that
Mm-hmm.
than it is to spend the money on Jason Momoa, you know, who they don't need to do that for, but or spend the money on, like, bringing Jason Momoa in, and maybe his name is big enough to sell
Right.
tickets or not. But De Niro has sold tickets,
Right.
so, you know, you can make another Godfather movie or
Right.
something like that in a weird situation like that. But I do agree with you when I say it's a weird situation
weird.
now, and you might see they have to decide which women as they get older, because there aren't a lot of older women that they're going to de-age that were bankable stars. Meryl Streep is one of them if they decide to do. I think because they might, like, especially if they win Oscars with The Irishman, they might say, well, we can get Oscars out of Meryl Streep's performances,
Yeah.
de-aging her, but there's not a lot of older women that they'll say that about, because for so long women were interchangeable to Hollywood producers and the studios.
And not given the proper roles to.
I agree. And so then there's not a lot of them around who would be bankable, you know. I think maybe at a time Sally Field might have been,
Ugh.
you know, but do you want to watch a Smokey and the Bandit 3? Like, going back to the James Dean conversation, do you want to go back and watch a Smokey and the Bandit 3? Like, I know there is a 3 that actually exists, but say, and bring back everybody who's dead, Jerry Reed, Jackie Gleason, Burt Reynolds, like, but they're not real. They're not there. Like, is that something weird to me?
Yeah. It's weird.
There's something weird to me about that, because they're not really there. They're
Right.
not really accepting these roles. They're not
Right.
really accepting these scripts, these
Right.
stories. And I think that's
It's
one
taking
of
their choice away from them.
exactly. And that's what's weird to me, is like you're taking their legacy, because now if that movie bombs, those actors have a bomb under their
Right.
name,
Yep.
and they don't
And
deserve
they
it.
didn't even ask. They didn't even have that.
They're not even alive to.
It's like movie rape, in a way.
That's
of forcing them to be in these roles.
That's a harsh way of putting it, but I don't think you're wrong. So it feels, it's almost like, and I hate to use this analogy because I don't want to go to this dark place, so let me use the analogy just to back up what you said. It's like if you're feeling somebody up at a party and she's drunk and you feel weird about it, there's a reason you feel weird about
Right.
it. So there has to be a reason why we're talking about this.
It's common decency.
And we feel weird about this happening. Like, I don't feel weird about the Irishman because they're all alive.
Right. That's different. Right.
Now that's another moral dilemma, like we were talking about. Are they going to take roles from younger actors?
But they chose to be in this movie and have that done to them.
Yes, yeah. So
So-
that's fine. But like the James Dean thing, putting him in a war when his essence in his movies and like his life seemed like, maybe not that he was anti-war, but I don't think that he probably, and I don't know him personally and never did, but I don't know that he would have been for the Vietnam War. So, and because I don't know whether he would or not, you can't put him in a movie about the Vietnam War when he's been dead almost 70 years.
Right.
You know, like, it's too much.
It's too much.
And, you know, I'm glad we talked about that actually, because that I wanted to get that off my chest. And I think I was going to talk about that on the Scenes Notes, but now I'm just going to direct everybody to a marriage like that.
But that's what a marriage is, isn't it? Getting things off your chest and working things out with one another.
Damn these actors who are fake. Yes, actually, it's funny that you mentioned that, because we were having a discussion about like our arguments before, because I started watching that show Blackish. Phenomenal show, by the way. I realize why it gets the accolades it does.
Well, I'm a little upset. Okay, so to be fair to our listeners, there are shows that Mike and I agree we will watch together, and we will wait for one another, you know, albeit passive-aggressively angry because the other person can't sit down, aka Mike gets mad at me, because it takes forever for me to actually calm down and sit down to watch things. But there are shows or movies that we agree to watch together, and then we have our own shows that we will watch. For example, I will watch on the bus, I will watch, you know, when he is down recording some of his other podcasts that you should check out. And then there are movies that Mike will watch on his own. And I was a little upset that he decided to watch Blackish without me, because it was so just so well talked about and so well received. And I am ashamed that I haven't watched it, and I am going to start watching it, because the few scenes and the few episodes that I've seen with you, we just watched the Prince one. I'm not going to digress because you had a point, and I will let you get to it, but go ahead. The Prince one was phenomenal, and I miss Prince so much.
It seems like especially now, because when the show started, we were not married. And granted, it was like young, because they're on season 6 now. And we're married going on 4 years. We were together 5.
You're lucky you got those numbers correct.
Yeah, no, I remember.
4 years next week, to be exact.
That's true. 5 years next week we met. 5 years on Friday. Tomorrow. I just forgot the date. I didn't forget.
Okay. I know.
I forgot what date it is today.
Right now, which is totally normal.
So, starting to watch it now, because I remember I tried it when it first started. I always like to give new shows that seem interesting to me a 3-show try. And I just, like, I started watching it, and I was just in a different place, you know. And
some of them don't get you.
It didn't get to me, and I think getting to it now that I'm married and have kids,
you can relate to it differently.
It definitely do, and more of their themes, and it's a true situational comedy. It is a true sitcom in the sense that they deal with different situations, sometimes dramatic, sometimes painful, a lot of times comedy, you know, but they do it right, and it's well acted. Everybody in it's great. Come on, Lawrence Fishburne is on the show, and I started watching it because we started watching Mixed-ish, and that was another show. I was like, I'll give it my 3-show try. I like Mark Paul Gosselaar, and I like I cannot remember her name now. The actress who plays the mother on Mixed-ish played Michelle Obama in South Side by You.
I don't know what that is.
That was the one. That was the movie about Michelle and Barack Obama's first date in Chicago. When they travel around Chicago together and just kind of explore the city while getting to know each other. It's a beautiful movie. You would love it. I'm surprised. I thought I told you about it before, but maybe I didn't. But I really think that you would love it.
Who does she play on Mixed-ish?
She plays the mother.
The wife?
Yeah, the wife.
Tika Sumpter?
Tika Sumpter, yes. That's her name.
Thank you, IMDb.
I mean, she was great in Southside by You, and I've seen her in some other things too.
That. Is it a movie?
Yes, it's a good movie. It's a very good movie. And it just kind of reinforces the idea of like how cool and how good those two people are. You know, like whether you agree with them politically or not, you can say like these are good people though.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I don't want to get into politics or anything like that, but they do a really nice movie about it, and that's definitely worth checking out, and I think you would love it. So anyway, going back to we watched Mixed-ish, and I watched like 3 episodes, and I think you got into it too, where it was just interesting, and now you're learning about these characters that I know exist on Blackish at older.
Right.
And I was like, well, Mixed-ish is good. Let me check out Blackish,
right.
and let me see. Now I'm gonna. It's 5-6 years later.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see how I feel about it now, because I'll do that.
Did you start from the beginning?
Yeah,
okay.
I already started right from the beginning, and even from the beginning, like the first 3 episodes, I was like, I had a different view of them, because, and it's not even a racial divide view.
Mm-hmm.
It was a family situation,
right.
like being a dad now, kind of seeing how he acts as a dad,
being a husband,
seeing their relationship together, which I see a lot of parallels in our relationship together, and it just spoke to me in that way. So going on and watching the show, and it's super funny. Anthony Anderson's everybody's great on it. Everybody's
the kids are those twins. Holy.
Dion Cole, who's a comedian, he plays Charlie, the friend at work, is probably my favorite character on the show. It's just some of the things he says, and I love him in everything. He's also in the Old Spice commercials when the wife tries to use his deodorant, and he's like, "That's for me."
Oh.
And that's where I like remember.
Is he the one who was like, "I'm on a horse. Now I'm on a"?
No, that's
no.
What's his name? Isaiah. I can't remember his last name.
The one, but from the show when he was on the ceiling.
He was a foot. No,
I'm because I haven't seen it.
You're mixing them up because remember it was Isaiah was his first name, but I can't. He was in the It Chapter 2. He played Mike, the grown-up Mike in it. I know you didn't see that, but
okay. IMDb it.
But he was the original. He was like, "I'm on a horse. Look at me now," and then, and like that was him. Then of course Terry Crews took over in Old Spice.
Right.
They had some cool commercials with Bruce Campbell in Old Spice too. I love their campaigns. That's what I'm saying. But right now, I love the campaigns that like it was a lavender scent, and Dion Cole plays the husband, and the wife keeps trying to take it from him, and he's like, "No, that's mine. It's Old Spice. It's for men." And it's just well played. So to see him on this show, and I've seen his stand up before. He's very funny, but
oh yeah,
to watch on the show how funny he could be, because he plays like a very wild-eyed, crazy type, but he like holds it, like he plays it almost straight,
right? And
it's so well done. Like they have a recurring theme on the show where the youngest daughter on the show and he have a blood feud going. And like there's always like everybody thinks he's crazy because he's just like, but then you'll see her like say something or do something that's like, oh, this is real.
Right.
Like he has every right to be afraid. It's well done, and the reason I bring it up Blackish is because the more and more I've been going on to it, I've been seeing things, and I just watched season 4, and the last 5 episodes of season 4 deal with Rainbow, who is the mother on the show, and she's phenomenal on it too. She's great. She can play really funny, but she can play dramatic too. She has a wide range in her acting. I've never seen her before.
Yeah. I
cannot think of anything else she was from. So for her to come on the show and to recognize her from watching Mixed-ish,
right?
I was like, okay, like she narrates Mixed-ish because it's about her character's childhood. But going on and then watching her with Anthony Anderson, they were fantastic together. And you have in the show, it got real dramatic, and it was. I think the first episode was like 53%. They meant 53% of married couples get divorced, and they talk about the numbers in divorce and things like that, and how things are cooling off between them, and there seems to be issues, and it's almost like a Cold War type scenario, and you're like, okay, but they're going to come around, and like I'm noticing parallels between you and I, and just kind of how they're talking to each other and how tired they are and everything else. And I'm like, wow, it's pretty crazy. I'm like, but they're going to come back around. Then the next episode happens. It ends poorly,
right,
where they are not in a good place. And then
right.
the next episode is called like Blue Valentine,
Mm-hmm.
where they do a fantastic thing, which is called shooting day for night, or night for day, rather. Sorry, day for night would be. Oh no, day for night. Yeah, where everything's bluish,
Mm.
and like it's dismal,
Okay.
and it's very cool to see. And they shoot the whole episode like that. It's very kind of like droning music, and you can see they're trying
Right.
with each other. Like they're trying to talk, and they're like, well, maybe we should go to brunch, and like they kind of get excited. They're like, oh yeah, let's go to brunch, and then a contractor shows up because they're going to remodel the kitchen.
Right.
So it stops them. So like they're fighting.
Right.
They just start fighting about something else, and like it's the lack of communication. Like he feels like he's not being heard, she feels like she's not being heard, and their points are kind of just butting heads at this point. And you're like, all right, they're going to fix this. This whole episode is about them arguing. They're going to fix it. Then you get to it ends poorly, and you get to the third episode. Now they're talking about one moved out, and they have this. The next episode is about them having a transition. Like somebody will live there part time at the house, and then the other person will stay in an apartment, and vice versa. And like kind of how they're dealing with their kids, but it also shows their kids all lashing out in different ways,
Right.
and dealing with this in different ways, like denial. One is acting out in school and getting in trouble. The other one's trying to overcompensate. Like, and it's kind of heartbreaking. Then you get to the next episode, and it's the graduation episode where everything seems like they're pulling together, they're rallying together for them and such, and maybe things are going to get better. And then it all comes out.
Right.
Things that they've been thinking and feeling for years come out, and they fight in front of everybody.
Yeah.
To the point where they don't even realize they're fighting in front of everybody.
Right.
And they look at each other and they're like, maybe that's it.
Right.
Maybe we don't need space. Maybe we just are done.
Yeah.
And they both now it's official. Like he gets a house somewhere else, and they're figuring life out without each other. And it's heartbreaking to watch. And through that episode, they kind of like have to learn how to do the things the other person did, the things that they depended on the other person went for.
And sometimes the things they didn't even know the other person did until they're not there to do it.
Definitely how they play that out.
Right.
Like the alarm goes off in the house while they're all sleeping, and she doesn't have him
Right.
to turn to, so she's got to figure it out.
Right.
He is eating with one fork for the entire family when they visit because,
Right.
they don't have a fork. He didn't
Yeah.
think to buy more forks or more towels, or he has like an infinity fireplace and a toddler there.
Right.
So like,
Yeah.
and he's got to try and figure out how this all works, and slowly they're getting it together, and then they come together in the end, and it moves on with them realizing they want to be together, which was great. And that arc to the story's over. They've moved on. Now they're dealing with other things. But for a situational comedy to spend 5 episodes in the 4th season of the
Right.
show with these, like I can't really think of too many shows that did that in a dramatic fashion. Mad About You is the only one that comes to mind right now. Mad About You did a similar thing.
Yeah, I remember that vaguely. We watched that. I love that show, but I can't really remember.
But if you
But I
remember,
do.
they split up because she kissed somebody else.
Yep.
And because they were having problems, and another guy entered, and like they had to deal with that. Like they started coming back together, and then he found out she kissed somebody else in a moment of weakness, and it started the clock all over again. Like, they were splitting up.
Yeah.
And that's another one that deals with marriage really well. But if you remember, in the end, they don't end up together.
Yeah.
They got divorced.
Right.
They had a child, and then like it flash forwards to the future, and they were split up for a long time. They got divorced, and they like kind of go to get pie again at the end because that was their thing. Let's go get pie. And so that was that. A lot of people didn't like the ending to Mad About You.
Yeah.
Because it was like that.
Right. Well, but that was also before they really got super heavy on TV. I mean, they did, to a certain extent, but now I think because our real lives are getting so real and things are really getting pulled to the forefront, and a lot of people who didn't have a voice before now have a voice. I think television shows are starting, and I think movies always did, but I think television shows are starting to kind of come back to that. I mean, All in the Family was one of the most groundbreaking shows that kind of started,
It was groundbreaking. All in the Family was groundbreaking because there was, like, racism was never touched.
Right, but
on
that's
TV.
what I mean. That was
And-
a topic that wasn't touched.
But yeah, everything was sugarcoated, and that's
Right.
that whole "Make America Great" thing again. I'm not getting political. I'm just saying that term,
Mm-hmm.
I think, was trying to be used for that beautiful, picturesque living you saw on TV and in the movies back in the 50s and the 40s. That
If you were white.
yeah,
Sorry.
no, that's true. But look who's saying it. Like,
No,
what I'm
correct.
saying is, like, that's what it was used to
Correct.
mean.
right.
Because even when I talk to Trump supporters now, it seems like it's like, well, remember how great we were, and then you look back and you're like, you look back at people our age and you're kind of like, when was it great?
Right.
You know, like,
Right.
I grew up in the '80s with you as your child, and I don't
Right.
remember it great. You know, or your niece or your nephew.
Right.
Or, you know, like, I grew up back then and it wasn't great.
Right.
You know, like, everybody praises Reagan now, and it was like, I remember there were some problems in the
Yeah.
'80s.
But let's get off the political.
Yes, but the
A
reason
little bit,
the reason
but-
I go back to that is
Mhm.
to kind of go back to All in the Family. All in the Family turned everything on its head because it was like, let's be real with this.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
not like this. This is not how people talk to each other.
Right.
Like, remember we were watching that All in the Family Jefferson's
Live.
live
Yeah.
in
They're
studio.
doing it again.
I did,
Okay.
and they're gonna do a Good
Yeah.
Times, which is one of my favorite shows of all
Oh,
time.
nice.
So I cannot wait for that.
Yeah.
I'm anxious to see who they get cast
Yeah.
for that.
But they did
Anthony
go live.
Anderson would be very cool for John Amos's character, who to me is one of my favorite actors of all time. And on that show, he was great. And
Yeah.
what they did to him was despicable. He got fired because he didn't want. He wanted to talk about real things. He wanted real things on the show that were happening to African Americans all over the country, and they didn't want that. They wanted the J.J. Walker,
Yeah.
Dynamite, have the catchphrases. That's what it was. So he got he either quit or he got fired. I think, but it was kind of like it was almost a forced quit.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
he didn't. He was standing. He was like Colin Kaepernick of his time,
Right.
standing on this mountain, planting his flag on this hill, saying like, I believed in this. And they talk about it on Blackish, which was a great point. Made me rethink not that I was against him, but like it made me rethink a lot with the Colin Kaepernick situation. When he's talking to his son and he plants his flag on this hill, and he says, he's like, I don't believe in this pitch that you want to do. It's racist. And they oust him from it. And like his son's like, I can't believe they ousted you. He's like, I might have to quit.
Right.
And he's standing on it and he's like, this is how it works. He's like, there's consequences. And he goes back and he goes, Muhammad Ali didn't believe in war. He didn't go to war. He went to jail.
Right.
And they took all of his championships from him.
Medals.
And like all of these things. He was talking about the two athletes from the, I think it was the '64 Olympics, or it might have been the
The ones
'68, who
raised their
gave
fist
the
in the air.
Black Power salute, and talked about how they got death threats and they kind of had to hide a bit.
Yeah.
And he's like, there's consequences when you stand up for yourself or you stand up for what you believe in. He's like, and that's
Stand up for everybody who doesn't have a voice, that doesn't have
Yes.
that platform.
Absolutely, and
Yeah.
but it was a really good way for him, and it was an eye-opening way in a lot of ways. The way he said it was, that there are consequences for standing up for yourself and standing up for what you believe in, and that you're going to have to follow through with that.
Yeah.
And it worked out in the end because again, it is a sitcom, like it's going to
Right.
happen, and it worked out in a natural way, and I liked
Oh,
it.
good.
Natural way for the characters on the
Mhm.
show. So. Going back to what I was saying, though, again, like I digress a little too far when I start talking about John Amos, but when they did that, and Marla Gibbs was talking, she played the maid on the Jeffersons. Marla Gibbs, 227 is one of my favorite shows of all time. If you can't tell, I grew up in the ghetto. I was a white boy who grew up in the ghetto, and I watched this stuff and I loved it, and I kind of connected with it. Black shows back then. So the reason I say that is Jefferson's was another one, and when she says in an interview during that live performance, she goes, "We needed when she was on the show, they were doing the producers after the table read, everybody would leave, all the actors would leave, and she stayed behind, and the producers and the writers are like, 'What are you doing?' She's like, 'This isn't how black people talk.'"
Right.
And they were open to her input.
Right.
She sat there and she showed like, "This isn't how black people talk."
And they touched on that with the remake. When they did the live, they said that she was an integral part of the writing, and I love that.
Yeah, but like for her to even stand there and just be like, "You're writing this, and this isn't how black people talk," and like to listen to that, you're just like, "That's great that they listen." Yeah. And going back is
a whole different way.
But it was great because you had All in the Family, which started out as a show for Norman Lear to be like, this isn't how people are.
Right.
We need grittier shows that show what America is like. And then you have the Jeffersons, like Marla Gibbs, telling them, like from a black perspective, this isn't how we talk, and you're not doing it right. And for him to listen, and the rest of the producers to listen and writers and be like, okay, well, tell us.
Right.
We want to get it right.
Right.
And then like you flash forward, and then like a show like Blackish, I was thinking about it too, because I'm connecting and I'm trying to keep an open mind from things that are different from me. When I watch shows or movies like this, like when I watch Get Out, or when I watched Us and things like that, and it has a black perspective of black filmmakers, and in such a divisive world now, like you got to keep an open mind, and that's what I'm trying to do when I watch these things, and learn from them. Like, how am I being insensitive? So if I'm being insensitive in this way, how can I change it? Because I don't want to be insensitive. That's not my point. I just grew up one way, and you grew up this way, and everybody grew up this, they grew up this way. So it's like, how do I get there?
Right. And the thing, and not to get on this tangent too long, but the thing that always kind of got me about that was that there's an absolute difference between growing up, a person of color, and growing up white, growing up poor and growing up rich, but the color of your skin seems to be the most impactful difference, from point of view, from experience, from understanding of things, that whole thing. But I feel like sometimes there's this blame, like, well, you wouldn't understand because you are opposite of me. And it's like, well, but I didn't choose that, just like you didn't choose how you were born. So, I don't know if that makes any sense, but like you said, you don't want to be insensitive, but it's almost like, let's try to, show me what it is from your point of view.
And I get that, but they're showing, like, it's not up to somebody to show you.
No, that's
from
true.
Their point of view.
No, and they don't have any. I have no right to ask that.
It's just compassion.
Right.
I think. I think in life in general, and that again, it doesn't have to do with race. It has to do with everybody.
Yeah.
You have to have compassion. Like if you see a homeless person on the street, you can't be like dirtbag. Like.
Well, no.
No, but there are people who will.
No, right.
Is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You have to have compassion, and maybe give them half your sandwich or the whole thing, or buy them food or whatever you want. What I'm saying is compassion lies with trying to understand. Like, don't call a guy a dirtbag or don't call a woman dirt. Why are you in hard times? Look what happened in this country only 10, 11 years ago, and how many people were displaced. How can you call anybody who's homeless a dirtbag or anything like that? But it happened for so long, and look at the problem in San Francisco when this very liberal city is supposed to be a sanctuary city, is putting spikes on. So the homeless can't sleep there. Or something. And it's like, and then New York, which is a blue state, But New York, which is like the mecca of business and everything that's wrong with the country, supposedly today, and I'm not saying that they don't have their issues, but they're sitting there and they're refusing to do that.
Right.
You know, like these people are homeless. Like, what are we gonna do? We're gonna kick them while they're down.
Right.
Like, so it is a very different look on
Yeah.
on like how divisive the country can be about many different things.
Right.
But going back to it and seeing this, I have not as a married man, I have not connected with a show. Like, because being a pop culture guy and loving movies and loving TV and stuff, like I try to connect with things. And this show I've connected with the most, especially being a married man. And the problems that married couples go through, and parents go through, being a parent,
Right.
you know, and the struggles there, and what that causes on marriage,
Yeah.
you know. So it's, like, this show I've connected with a lot, in that sense. And it's been definitely helping, because it's, even from the perspective of, like, I was thinking about it now, on the show, it was written that they had to split up. But I'm thinking the entire time, like, I can't leave.
Right.
I was like, my
The
life.
marriage?
If like it ever got that bad, I'm like, and it has gotten bad.
It has.
We
Oh,
have
yeah.
had some bad times where we didn't know if it was going to work out.
Yep. And we even voiced it
Yeah.
that we weren't sure.
And
we were at that point.
but it would get to this point where, you know, it was scary in many ways. But ultimately it was like, I'm not falling on my sword for this. Like, this isn't something that I was like, I don't want to be without her in my life. Now, I can't say for year 6, I can't say for year 7 or 8 or 20 or whatever, where we'll be at or how different we'll be from then. But all I can say is, as of right now, and it's been this way, is like, I don't want that. I don't want to be apart.
Right.
Life is far better since you've been in it than without you, you know, so the arguments for me, even as bad as they've gotten, are not that bad, you know, so that I opened my eyes to it too. It was like, no, I wouldn't want an apartment. Like, if we brought that up, like, should one of us get an apartment and we'll go back and forth, like, no,
Right.
no, like, yeah, you know, the kids are important, you know, very important to me, but so are you. Like, and I think that's what, you know, one of the analogies they used in it, and I kind of told you, and I'll say it again for, you know, whoever's listening, is their therapist in it compared marriage to Thanksgiving dinner, and how the marriage is the turkey. It's the most important part. It's the center of everything, and you get it ready, you put it in, and now it's got to cook. And so you start worrying about, not worrying, but you start thinking about all of the things on the side, the kids, you know, all this stuff, all the sides, tending to those things and trying to get them ready. That it's very easy to forget about the marriage, the turkey, and it's in the oven, and, you know, let that, and it could be ruined, or it could get dry, or whatever else. But it's important to remember the turkey and go back and make it a priority. So I was like, you know, it's kind of a hokey analogy, but at the same time, like, it was a good analogy.
I think it's a good one, but I also think, you know, to a certain extent. There's an argument to both of what I'm about to say. The first argument is, when you have kids, they should be the priority, because they, especially when they're as young as our kids are, you know, they need a lot of guidance. We are there to show them, we are there to teach them. We are, you know, building them up to be good grown-ups.
I agree.
Not to be jerks.
If I can interject your point for a second. Okay, I can see on your face right now that this is not the time to interject, so go ahead. And if we're going to be real on this A Marriage Like That podcast, that is one of the things that we have an issue with, is that, you know, when one of us is talking, the other person wants to interject. Now, But you mean say the right point again? I'm kidding.
Okay. So, you know, and because you interjected, I lost my train of thought.
All right, well, try to
And
get
so, no, I know that, but my point is that, you know, in a marriage, when you communicate, it can't just be one person talking. And so both of us could learn a little bit more to, if you hear any background noise, we're having a little technical difficulties.
Yeah, keep talking.
With one, I don't keep talking, don't worry about that. But what I was saying is that, you know, no, I totally lost what I was saying.
No, what you were saying was that because we're raising kids.
Oh, that they come first. But
it
it is true to a certain point. Like, we do have to put them first, and when they are a little bit older and a little bit more self-sufficient, that's when you and I will be able to go back. But the hard part with us is that I had a child when we met.
Mm-hmm.
So we didn't have that, you know, solo one-on-one time ever in our marriage. So I think we are already behind the curveball on that. Not that I disagree that you should, you know, always tend to and always, you know, because at the end of this, you know, little kid road, it's just going to be us.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to have their lives outside of the house, and we're still going to have to like each other,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and have sustained this marriage. So finding that balance is really hard, in my opinion. But I still think that, you know, the fact that we didn't have that, you know, single time, if you will, not apart from each other, but without kids, it's just been a little difficult.
I definitely know what you're saying. I kind of disagree to an extent. Like, I think because we both sort of felt that way in the beginning, especially when we had Jack. And it was newer to have a baby.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely agree that, like, we have to raise them to be good people, and we have to put a focus there and to teach them. But what are we teaching them when they watch us?
That's right.
You know, and are we teaching them right?
We're
Are we
teaching
teaching them how to
them-
be good men who will love their wives and listen to them and make time for them? And that's...
And are we teaching them to love strong women, or to love, you know, women that will act a different way, you know?
Yeah, and I
and
think
how we talk to each other.
I think that's the important part of this is we need to... I think it's important to make time for us, especially the older they get.
Yeah. Oh, agreed. For sure.
Because what are they seeing? Like, I don't want them to think like loving somebody means like arguing, or loving somebody means
No.
joking with each other.
In a sarcastic
or
tearing you down
passive-aggressive way.
Right. Which we
Yeah.
are working on, and I think we're doing
Yeah.
a good job.
But we're making more time for each other, and I think that's where the happiness comes back, because it's like we're focusing on the turkey. And we're focusing on the turkey because we want them to focus on the turkey when
Right.
they get older, whether they have kids or not.
Right.
You know, and it's leading by example,
Mm-hmm.
and you know that's why I think it is important. But you know that's just all I have on that. But I do think it's an important thing, though.
But it also goes, you know, it says a lot for, you know, because another thing that comes up is that we don't feel like, I don't really want to say this is one of the instances where the other person doesn't feel heard, but it's almost like, you know, it's almost like a tit for tat. Like, I'll do this if you do that. You know, if I do the laundry, are you going to do the kitchen? You know, and it's
Mhm.
almost like, well, you know, I told you I was going to do the kitchen, but now I'm doing this other thing, so I'm off the hook for it. And I think we could run into trouble in that too, because, you know, because then we are showing them that it is this trade-off. So, all right, well, so for them as the children, it's like, okay, well, if I clean, and this will probably be for when they're older, but, you know, well, you told me to take out the trash, so now I don't have to mow the grass, because we showed them that that's what life is like.
Yeah, and I don't want that either. But the dynamic has changed since becoming a stay-at-home dad, and you having a much more demanding job. You know. So I feel like the dynamic changed a bit there. Like, there isn't as much in the home front that you have to worry about. like, you used to do all the laundry
Mm-hmm.
when I worked. Like, I don't think I ever really did laundry.
Mm-mm.
And, you know, but I'd get fed up having to do the dishes all the time.
Right.
And now that the dynamic is there and it's different, there's more of an understanding because now I do all of the laundry.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I do the dishes because I'm home.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so, you know, there are times where it's like raising a child, raising two children,
Mm-hmm.
but one's at school. That's why I said that.
Yeah.
So one full time, like,
Well, and one's 3 and takes over kind of everything at this stage in their life, as 3-year-olds tend to do. So.
well, that's what I mean though. It's the 3-year-old is the one that's with me all the time.
Mm-hmm.
The 7-year-old is getting easier as life goes on. Like, I mean, there are parts about him that are not. So there are parts about him that are not getting easier, you know, as he gets older, and we have to navigate that. Like, but in a listening stance, and like the fact that we don't have to worry about him killing himself, like if he eats the wrong thing, you know, or something like that. Like, from that parenting stance, like, it's getting easier. But now it's they're both more aware.
Right.
So it's like we have to be more aware about like what we say, how we act, what we're doing.
How the tone that we talk to each other in.
Yeah. And because for a while there, like, we were going through a tough time with each other, you know, especially when Jack was born, like,
Yeah.
being older and dealing with a baby.
Right.
For the first time,
Yeah.
having to deal with somebody else.
Right.
For you, like, you had to deal with somebody else full time. And I just had to deal with having a brand new baby, also having to take care of a 4-year-old at the time,
Right.
and having a wife.
Right.
You know, it was all just new to us, you know, on all fronts. And it was tough. It was tough. It led to a lot of dark times.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's important to remember that. It's even important to talk about, like, especially doing it now, because you never know who else is going through it.
Right. The
but-
lack of sleep, I think, had a huge amount to do with it. So I think any new parents out there need to remember that.
Yeah, we still have a lack of sleep.
Well, I read that you don't get a good night's sleep until your kids turn 6, so we're halfway there.
Awesome.
However, but it is true. I mean, how many times did we snap at each other to the extent that we did because we just were exhausted and we didn't have anything left and we didn't want to give the other person that little tiny bit, even though looking back, we could have, I think. I mean, going both ways.
Yeah. No, I
But we
agree.
were still, but it also went really fast for us. I mean, we had, you know, we were pregnant within a year of
Yeah.
meeting.
No, from, like, not within. It was a year. Like, it
No,
was,
right. That's
like,
what I
we
mean.
got married, and, like, you got pregnant on honeymoon.
Right.
Like,
That's what
so
I mean. Yeah.
it was definitely, you know, I mean, yes, not counting the
Right.
miscarriage, but
Right.
but having a baby, yes,
Right.
and like dealing with pregnancy and things like that. And that's
Let
stories
me
for
tell you,
another
that
episode.
Blackish. So one of the Blackish episodes, or parts of the episode that I saw, was where Bo was on the OB table,
Mhm.
and the whole family was there, waiting to hear the heartbeat, and they couldn't find the heartbeat, and that broke me.
That was tough.
Remembering back to that. You know, Jack is absolutely a rainbow baby, you know, and I just that was tough. That was really hard.
I agree, and you know that was, and it was again another good thing that they dealt with on that show is like how it affects the family,
Right.
not just the woman. Because like you know, hit me hard too. Like that's, you know, but it, you know, again, that's something we should save for another podcast
Yeah.
because we're already an hour 18 into this
Right.
one.
Now let's get to the heavy stuff.
Yes. No, let's lighten it up just a little bit.
Yeah.
So, getting out of it, like, I do recommend Blackish for you to watch,
Very,
for everybody to watch
yeah.
if people don't watch it. It's a very good show.
But see, I just started Breaking Bad to get ready for the movie.
I watched El Camino, and it
Yeah.
was good. It was a good episode.
Yeah.
And I feel like you need to watch Breaking Bad to understand it. It's not a
Right.
standalone movie.
Right.
And I definitely watched it because Mel worked on it,
Mhm.
and I wanted to see her name in the credits. So, going that route, like, I don't want to watch Breaking Bad again. Every episode is great. It is a great show. Seeing certain points of the show while you're rewatching it, it reminds me how terrific it was, but
it's heavy.
It is a heavy show. And like watching El Camino, I'm like, I got the ending that I wanted. And, you know, that's it. I'm good.
Yeah.
I don't need any more.
Yeah.
I didn't even really need El Camino.
I'm telling you, Breaking Bad was one of the best endings. Like, everything seemed like it was addressed.
Yeah.
All of the holes were filled. Just amazing. And so in comparison, and I can't remember the timeline, but I feel like it was around the same time as Dexter. Or let me say, when I watched the two, because I hardly ever watched a show while it was on the air. I always would go back to it. So I watched the two kind of around the same time, and just being so disappointed with how Dexter ended, and just having all of the wind, let out of your sails on that, and then to have Breaking Bad just end so beautifully. I'm almost hesitant to watch El Camino because I don't want to ruin that orchestrated, perfect.
The thing is, though, they don't take away from anybody else. Any of the other characters, they don't take away from them. They just expand on Jesse. Okay.
And Jesse was one of my favorites. I mean, I fell in love with him in that show.
And because it was so open-ended at the end, and, like, you can take away, if you have an optimistic view, it's an optimistic ending. Yep. Pessimistic is pessimistic. Yeah. Whereas El Camino is like, we're going to give you a definitive ending to Jesse Pinkman.
And I like that. I mean, I feel like, while there is something to be said, what is the movie with Kevin Spacey where he was the alien?
Force Myself on Other Men?
Yeah, no, the one before that.
Cave Hacks.
I feel like that was one of the first open-ended movies where you were left to decide, at least that I remember, you were left to decide what was real, what really happened, and it kind of irritated me, and it kind of irritated me because I'm like, no, I paid for a story. You're going to tell me a story has a start, a middle, and a finish. I want to know what the story is. But I will say now, there is something to be said about finishing your own story and having your own choice. But I still kind of stand by the fact that I want an ending. I want you to tell me, because what's the point then? I feel like that is lazy. Because you couldn't think of an ending.
I 100% agree with you.
Yeah.
And it's not even that they can't think of an ending. A lot of writers think that they're being
edgy or
existential in a way, like, open-ended, man. Like,
take what you want.
I'm not saying open endings don't work.
Right.
They work if they're done right.
True.
But you have to have an ending to your story. Like, if you think about it, and just to kind of compare, like, The Shining has an open ending. Mm-hmm. It leaves you wondering, were the ghosts real?
Right.
Was he just going crazy? What's happening? And there are things to lead you to, there are real things like that, but it was open ending in a way.
I still don't understand how he ended up in the picture, though. I don't...
Exactly, but it's an open ending. Okay. And that's what, like, if you decide the ghosts were real...
Kind of like Donnie Darko, how you can't...
Sort of, again, another existential point of view.
Shining, though.
But, like, if it's shoehorned in and it's like, this will be cool, it's like, you're probably going to fail at this.
Right.
Now, my favorite movie of all time is Back to the Future. That's plot hole central.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying there's not shoddy writing there. There's a lot of plot holes, but there's a definitive beginning. There's a definitive middle. There's a definitive end. Mm-hmm. You can just watch that first one, and there's a beginning, middle, and end. Mm-hmm. Leaving it open-ended again.
Right.
But there's still an end.
Yeah.
And, of course, it did go on, and I'm happy about that. But, so there's something to be said about open endings in a way like that.
Yeah.
You can leave it open. The adventure goes on.
Sure. Yes. Yes.
There's nothing wrong with that. Mm-hmm. That's leaving an open ending.
Rode
what
off into
happens
the sunset.
next? Breaking Bad. What
Indiana
happens
Jones.
next? You decide in your
Right.
head what happens to Jesse.
Right.
And this is before El Camino.
Right.
We told you the story of what happens.
We told you the story of Walter White.
Well, but no, Jesse Pinkman too. But they don't give you the ending to Jesse Pinkman.
That's what I mean, right?
He gets away, and you can decide how it works out. But our story has an ending.
Right. Walter
You know.
White's story has an ending.
Everybody in that show's story has an ending. So it's all ended. Like, you know, the money's going to go to the kids, which is what he always wanted from the beginning. So overall, like, everything gets tied up. There are no loose ends. So, but that's an open ending that works. You wrote it, so you tied up all of your loose ends, but you left it open ending to whoever's pessimistic or optimistic, however it's going to end in their mind for that character. And because you built that character the way you did for 5 years, it works. Now, to kind of bring it back around, so I agree with you. It's poor writing when it's a situation like you were explaining, like, well, you decide. No, don't tell me what to decide.
Right.
You're the writer. That means you couldn't decide,
right.
and you're a bad writer.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, like, so I hate that. Yes, I do agree with you. And with that being said, I think we're almost at an hour and a half here, so we'll let our dear listeners kind of drift off into sleep, or if they're listening to this while they're going to work,
Hope you have a good day at work.
You can get out of your car now and go inside.
That's right.
But just to kind of tie it together, give us a listen, give us a follow and a like and a subscribe. We're on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook.
You can find all the links on the website at thescenesnob.com.
Yep, Scene Snobs.
Snobs.
Scenesnobs with an S.com. All of our podcasts are on there, past episodes, everything. They're linked to the SoundCloud. So
you can also find some movie reviews.
Yep, there are movie reviews. I have older movie reviews on there. I have the links to the videos that I put together on there from YouTube, or you can download it on the SoundCloud files. But we are at the Scene Snob. I'm at the Scene Snob on Instagram and Twitter. It's the Scene Snobs on Facebook, the Scene Snobs channel on YouTube, and you can follow Mary at
Straight Out of Nap Time. What is it? Mary the Mommy.
Mary the Mommy. That's right. You can follow her there, and you'll get updates about what's going on with the shows, what we're doing, and just some other fun stuff.
Yep.
So just let us know what you think. I definitely love feedback. I think Mary does too. So
yeah, thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in to our rambling chats.
hopefully it helped. All right. Have a good night, everybody.
See ya.